weapons, you can't do anything about it. But then the Americans could answer, we have nuclear weapons too. We can do something about it. And Putin would answer, yes, you do, but I am the madman, so you need to listen to me. And what kind of logic is that? I'll tell you what kind of logic that is. That is the logic of the apologists who are opposing Ukraine and who are siding with Russia. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Fortunately, the vast majority of people know better. The vast majority of people in this country and in most countries know that Russia is to blame for this terrifying situation that is unfolding in Ukraine right now. Fortunately, the vast majority of people know that Ukraine needs help in order to survive and in order to prevent this war from spilling any further. But, unfortunately, there are still some very vocal individuals, who are apologists and Russophiles, many of whom are getting paid by Russia.
Then they should stop promoting war in Russia.
Ah, yes, indeed. This is one of the most common arguments that the Russophiles tell us. Oh, but Ukraine provoked Russia. How dare Ukraine want to join NATO? Hold on a second. Since when does Ukraine need the permission of Russia to join NATO? Since when does Ukraine need the permission of Russia to join the EU? Since when does a sovereign country need permission of another country to do anything at all? My friends, it is a scary precedent to have this politics of appeasement with the Russian terrorist state, because the same politics of appeasement have resulted in countless deaths and immeasurable suffering in Ukraine, and not only in Ukraine. The world needs to stop seeing Russia as this, thank you very much, as this country that cannot be messed with, that cannot be that works in a different way that the rest of the world does. The world has changed. Thank you very much. The world has changed indeed. And that change is within every single one of us. That change needs to come sooner rather than later. Because if the world keeps moving the same way that Russia is trying to take the world, then the precedent is terrifying. There will be endless wars started by nuclear countries against the countries who do not have the nuclear weapons to defend themselves. There will be countless bloodshed, immeasurable deaths. And we stand here against that. We stand here for peace. Ukraine has always stood for peace. That is why Ukraine has committed itself to the biggest nuclear demilitarization in human history. And yet, do you ever hear the Budapest Memorandum mentioned in the Russian-owned propaganda machine? No. We do not hear anything about the Budapest Memorandum. We do not hear anything about the promises that Russia broke and Russia is breaking right now, and that they are planning to keep breaking for as long as they are not punished. We don't hear about that from the Russians. We only hear about apologist politics, about revisionist history. That is what we hear from the Muscovite regime.
Everyone needs to repent to Jesus Christ. He loves you all.
Have a nice day, my friend. Have a nice day. Hey, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. You know, for a second there, I thought that maybe it's somebody who's saying something in support, perhaps, or maybe one of the Russophiles who would, start arguing and shouting at us. You know, it's funny. Every time that somebody is supporting Russia and passes by here, they just shout something and then leave. But when people support us, they actually stay around for a little bit. It's almost like the people who give us support are not afraid of sticking around and speaking and justifying their support. And the people who don't support us have no justification whatsoever. So they just want to throw something at us and run away. But my friends, I have to admit, I am a little bit sad that the pig pen over there in the corner has now disappeared. On one side it's good, but on the other side, it's almost like something is missing. Because every time we would do our lovely protests here, there would be one of those poor, unfortunate individuals with obvious mental issues who would come here and would start spouting out some of the Russian propaganda. And it shows who the Russian propaganda really is targeting. It's not targeting people who can think for themselves, who can think clearly. No, it's targeting the poor people, the oppressed people, the people with mental issues. Those are the people used and abused by the Russian propaganda. Those are the people that are thrown at any person who speaks out against the Russian propaganda in the whole world. My friends, the Russian military has shown itself highly incompetent, but the Russian propaganda is still very, very much competent. That is why we must be careful, and we must tell the whole world what really is going on and how we are planning to stop it. Stop Russia, stop the war!
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 More sanctions on Russia!
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 Freeze Russian assets!
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 Freeze Russian
Freeze Russian
assets!
assets!
Freeze Russian assets!
Sometimes, the Russophiles and the apologists claim that the poor Russian athletes don't deserve to be sanctioned, that they have nothing to do with this war. But my friends, those same athletes are parading in Russia in support of Putin. Those same athletes show Z's on their equipment. Those same athletes are trying to garner support abroad for the Russian terrorist action in Ukraine. Those are the exact same people. That is why there need to be sanctions, not only against Russian businesses, not only against some Russian individuals, but against anybody who is supporting and contributing for this genocidal war in Ukraine. Everybody who is responsible needs to be held responsible. And we don't divide the responsibility, thank you very much, by who supports us more and who supports us less. No, there needs to be responsibility for everybody. A thief is not allowed to walk out of jail just because there are murderers on the planet. Both the thief and the murderer deserve a punishment. It's just that their punishment is different. The claim that the Russian terrorist regime is making is that thieves should not be punished because they're not as bad as murderers. Well, my friends, if thieves were not being punished, what would ever stop a thief from stealing? What would ever do that? Sometimes, some people can only be stopped by the inevitable threat of force. And that is the only reason why the Russians have not yet used nuclear weapons and why they will not use them. Because they are afraid of consequences. But they were not afraid of these consequences when they invaded Ukraine in 2014. They were not afraid of these consequences when they attacked Ukraine again around 2 years ago. They were never afraid of any major consequences. We must prove them wrong. And we must make sure that every time that there's a genocide, every time there's an unprovoked attack, it needs to be punished. Because indeed, if one criminal can get away, then all criminals can get away. Then everybody will start trying the same kind of rhetoric as the Russians are doing right now. Imagine if Italy decided to invade its neighbors simply because long ago there was this thing called the Roman Empire. To be completely honest, it would be absolutely ridiculous. Italy would get absolutely destroyed. Because all the European countries would unite